Hello, welcome to our webcast. Today
Welcome.
we're going to talk today we're going to talk about Canada will eclipse the US rate cuts. So we're going to discuss the US side and the Canadian side, some of the
Yeah, it's
recent
really
numbers
a
that have come
tale
in.
of two different markets. We're seeing strength in the States and weakness here at home. And the end result is that we could see a much different environment north and south of the border with respect to interest rates.
Yeah. So in the US, the numbers came in higher than expected. With inflation growth year over year, January was at 3.9%. February, March came in around the same at 3.8%, which is, higher than the economists expected. Then the employment rate came in exceeding economists' projections of 200,000 and actually came in around 303,000 during March. So the unemployment rate dropped to about 3.8%, and which, was the rate fell about 10 basis points.
Right. So I
Yeah.
mean the Federal Reserve, they have a mandate to what is it, maximize employment and promote price stability, which means inflation of 2%.
Right.
So in those
So,
readings you mentioned, we're seeing
yeah,
job growth come in stronger than what has been expected, and we're seeing inflation start to pick back up, and it's exceeding the estimates as well. It's totally different north of the border here at home in Canada. The
right.
last two inflation reports, we haven't got March yet, but for January and February, they both came in higher than what the economists thought the inflation rate would be. With respect to jobs, you mentioned that blockbuster US jobs report for last month. I mean, 300,000 jobs, it's a big number. We actually lost jobs last month. 2,200 positions were lost. The
Hmm.
expectation was for a gain. Yeah, month to month, it's lumpy, but it's we're seeing weakness here at home.
Right.
So we mentioned in the blog that Pierre Trudeau was famous once for saying in a speech that living adjacent to the US is like sleeping with an elephant. And but in this case, the elephant is domestic because our mortgage market is so much different than that of the US's. South of the
Hmm.
border, you get a 30-year fixed mortgage. That's the most
Yeah.
popular one to
Yeah.
undertake.
And the 5 year. Yeah.
Here, it's a
Yeah.
5-year fixed mortgage,
Right.
and so many people refinanced or took out a loan during the pandemic. And here we are, April 2024. Those mortgages are up for renewal.
Hmm.
And because were near zero at the time, and now they're well, we just talked to a client today. He
Right.
just renewed his mortgage. He negotiated down very wisely, but the bank wanted to renew at 7%, I think he said.
Yeah, it was about 6.9%,
Yeah.
and he ended up much
He ne-
lower than that.
yeah, he negotiated down to 4.9.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
good for him. But
Right.
that's what they're renewing people at now is 7%.
Yeah.
So um 3/4 of Canadian mortgages are fixed, and 14% of all Canadian home loans are up for renewal this year. That goes up to 24% next year and 35% in 2026. Now,
Mm.
what this means is as you're renewing your mortgage, payments are about 20% higher for most households. And that equates to
Yeah.
about $400 or so, is what
Yeah.
most banks are saying on average.
But that can
So,
be that's substantial for people
yeah,
in their personal budgets, right?
yeah, absolutely. Every poll
Right.
I ever see says most Canadians can't afford an emergency
Hmm.
expenditure. They live paycheck to paycheck. So, yeah,
Hmm.
$400 a month is that's really
Yeah.
going to weaken the consumer. And 70% of the economy is the consumer. So if you're spending an extra $400 a month on your mortgage, you're spending $400 less on something else. So these rates will create a recession. There's no doubt about it. So I
Hmm.
think the Bank of Canada will want to reduce interest rates for the reasons we've mentioned. Canada's inflation is coming in weaker than
Hmm.
expected. The job market is rolling over, and we have this huge mortgage market crisis to worry about because as people renew their mortgage, many can't afford these payments. So
Right. As
we,
opposed to the US, originally they came out with six rate cuts for the year, and now they've pulled it right back to two,
yeah,
potentially, two priced in
yeah,
for the year. So big
yeah,
difference in that.
yeah. So
Um,
I mean, I think Canada starts cutting in June. If we're wrong about June, I'm very confident about July. Um, in the States, there are some people who don't think there's a need for any rate cuts this year, but if there probably will be cuts in south of the border, but it might not start until the fall. So we think the cuts are more substantial in Canada. They happen sooner, possibly as early as June.
mhm.
That could cause probably will cause the loonie to fall below 70 cents, I would think. So that makes US stocks more attractive. So
Right.
we have some names on our watch list, and um one caveat I should throw in is there's a federal budget coming up, and we mentioned Pierre Trudeau. Leave it to the Sun to spend billions and billions of dollars at a time when inflation is top of mind for the Bank of Canada. So that might cause our central bank to push back the hikes, but we'll wait and see what's in the budget and how many billions of
Yeah,
dollars they're going to spend um, again this year, again and again.
right.
So, anyways, bottom line, we think Canada will cut sooner, probably in June.
Yeah.
All
Okay.
right.
Thanks
Okay.
very much.
All right. Thanks,
Talk
Sammy.
to you soon.